Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Perhaps you are one of those who has read The Artist's Way, or if you haven't, it's a wonderful book. If you have any kind of artistic yearning inside of you, this book really gives you permission to allow yourself to be that artist or that writer or that poet or filmmaker or whatever it is that you desire to be. And I truly believe that so many of us are creative, and probably most of us, we express it. Everyone, I think, is creative, whether we express it as an engineer or as a mechanic or as a teacher or whoever, as an actual painter or whoever. We just have this creativity flowing through all of us. So yes, The Artist's Way was a book that I read when I was 27. It's actually a program. I think Julia Cameron first used to teach it as an in-person course, and then she released it as this book, The Artist's Way, that changed many people's lives as it did mine. So it's set out in weeks. There are 12 weeks, and each week gives you information and also different practices and journaling prompts to do. So this is how it's set out, and is really quite life-changing. So for me, I discovered it when I was 27. There was a singer-songwriter at work where I worked as a second language teacher, and she was a couple of years older than me, and she was really into it, or she was doing it at the time, and so that's how I discovered it, and then I bought it and I did it too. So yeah, and before that, in the last vlog, one of them, I talked about my journey to becoming a writer as well, how I discovered Anais Nin while I was at university. And then I don't think I've talked about yet the in-between stages, but between that I went to India, and I ended up I had yearnings to be a writer, and I met this guy at a sound studio, and I ended up having this experience where this book started flowing out of me, and then he read it, and he was a sound engineer, but he had dated a screenwriter, and so when he read what I had written, he really encouraged me. He was like, "This is so good for a first draft. You really have to focus on this now." And because he was in the creative world, it was quite normal for him to be a writer or a musician, or this was the world that he lived in, a screenwriter or a director. So he believed that I could be a writer, whereas I didn't know any actual writers in my life, and my mum is Indian, and Indian immigrant, and my dad was an engineer, Australian, so I didn't really have this influence in my life or this kind of belief system that I could become a writer and just be a writer or do anything creative. Really creative, because actually I worked as a second language teacher, and that was very creative as well. It took like all my creative energy when I was really into it and doing it full time. So yeah, so that was part of my journey, was going to India and start writing my first book. But then that was when I was 24, and then I hadn't really learned how to be a writer yet. So this book, when I was 27, was a part of that journey. And then when I was 28, I went back and I studied creative writing at Murdoch University, and then that was another big part of my journey to becoming a writer. So in The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron has a couple of practices, and one of them is sorry, I don't know why I do these videos on Monday because I'm by myself on Monday and it's really hard for me to talk, but I will persist anyway. Hope that it's not you can't hear the hoarseness in my voice too much. So let me just go back a bit. So I was a very creative child, and then when I went to high school, this creativity just had to stop. So when I was a child, I used to do things like make up different games for my cousins to play, which was a lot of role playing, like families or swim school or teacher. I used to play with my toys or my cousins or my neighbours. And then when I went and I used to write like plays with my cousins, like at Christmas to perform or just at home. And then when I went to high school, I took subjects that interested me that I didn't have experience with already. So like in primary school we did art, and I really enjoyed art, but I'd already done it and I wanted to try new things. So when I went to high school, I did theatre arts, which I ended up hating because I was just too intimidated by the formality of it and the other girls who were actually really good at it. And at that stage, I didn't really know about resilience and persistence, and I did because I did dancing, but I didn't apply it that much to my life in other ways. You know, if I wasn't good at something straight away in other subjects, like at school, I tended not to like it. But I did, so I didn't like theatre arts, and I didn't take it after that first year. And the other subject I did was like home economics, which I did it because I loved like cooking, and I wanted to learn sewing, like because I didn't really know that. So I did home economics. And the other thing I did was French, and because I really wanted to learn French, and that was kind of how my mum convinced me to go to this all-girls high school. And well, I didn't have too much convincing because I kind of had to go there, but it was one of the ways she got me to like it and to be convinced like to go there. And so yeah, so I remember in primary school we had to, part of our grade was how beautifully we decorated our work, and we would do all these like beautiful borders and spend ages doing them. And then when we got to high school, I remember my first social studies assignment. It was on Krakatoa, this volcanic eruption on Krakatoa, and I drew this like volcano on the cover with spurting out fire. And I remember the very cutting words of the social studies teacher, which probably didn't really seem that much big of a deal to her, but to me, because when you're in year 8 and you're just starting high school, you don't know anyone and you don't know what it's like there. She wrote, "We don't do this anymore" on the title, and oh my God, I felt so ashamed of that. I felt so childish, and so I just really cut off that part of me. But I turned it inwards as well, and I made myself the art project. So I started doing this. I was really into supermodels, they were all the rage, and I didn't really have many friends. Well, I only knew 2 other people going to that high school, and I wanted to go to a different high school, so I didn't want to make friends in the first term. And yeah, so I really turned this creativity upon myself and made myself and my body into the art project. And so like I would go to the library at lunchtime, so I wouldn't make any friends, and I'd look at the cookbooks, and I was doing home economics, but at the same time I was also doing grooming and deportment. I took this class on a Wednesday after school, and I was into like Supermodel magazine, and so I, at the same time, my body was developing, and so I went from being this like completely skinny 12-year-old to like starting to develop curves. And like the more that I became interested, the more that I wanted to change my body, the more it was changing in a way that I didn't want it to. Like I wasn't a stick supermodel. I was probably actually had the proportions of the supermodel at the time, but I didn't feel like it. And so the more that I tried to change myself, the less that I would change, and I just became more and more obsessed with food and with my body. And this went on, like this cycle of dieting and deprivation. I actually made this video about it before. There's on my channel, you can see there's this video about my body obsession. So if you're interested in that, you can have a look for that video on my channel. But yeah, so Julie, getting back to this story, Julia Cameron, and discovering my creativity again, and like really channeling it into writing and into other creative pursuits in that way, was really the beginning of the end for my body obsession. And so I really healed from learning the artist's way. And so one of the main tools in this techniques is to write these morning pages, which are 3 pages in the morning of your writing in your journal, like a stream of consciousness, whatever comes out. So I did that for a while, but my journals are like A4, so I didn't continue to do the 3 pages, but I do at least 1 page daily. Now it's not in the morning. For a long time it was still in the morning, but now I tend to do it more in the afternoon because I do my own writing work on my books in the morning, and I like to be fresh from, my night's sleep and go straight into my creative writing in the morning. So yes, so that is one thing that has stuck with me though, doing the journaling. And when I started doing journaling was actually when I was 11, and I think I learned about it from the Babysitters Club books, and I was really into those, or from Judy Blume, probably in some of her books like Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, or something like this. I was really into journaling. I was into journaling from that and started doing it from when I was 11 and continued through high school, but I only ever did it sporadically until my sometime in my mid-20s, and then definitely with this book it became more consolidated. So that's one of the practices from that. And then the other practice, that's why I started thinking about this book, is the artist date, where one day a week you go on this artist date where you go somewhere different, and you might be like go to like an op shop or to, I don't know, a market or a secondhand bookstore, or just like go walking or exploring a different part of the city or anything like that. And this weekend I didn't really do that, but I did go on my own little artist date on YouTube and TV, exploring different things. And for example, on Friday night I watched this show on this channel SBS. It's called Paul Goes to Hollywood, and it's this baker, Paul Hollywood. You might know him from the Great British Bake Off. There's Mary Berry and Paul Hollywood, and I really love his personal cooking show where he will go and explore different cities around the world, because I love travel as well and I love history. So he'll go to different bakeries he'll go to different cities around the world and explore the different baking culture there and the history of it. I find it really interesting. And this show, Paul Goes to Hollywood, he's going to America. It's not particularly about baking, but he went to like Santa Fe and he was exploring like cowboys and the films and the kind of food history there and the other history to do with food and film. So that was one thing. And then I watched on YouTube, it was called, it was like a special that was called The Double Life of George Michaels. And that was really interesting. George Michael, the singer, about how he ended up dying by himself of a heart failure and liver failure after his rise to fame, and like this double life that he led. I found that really interesting as well. On Saturday I didn't watch any TV. I just cycled to the beach and read, and I finished reading these 2 books that I had been reading. And then on Sunday, I was really tired in the afternoon, and I was just watching this show on YouTube called The Soft White Underbelly, which is about different interviews of this man makes of like drug addicts and prostitutes and this people, the soft white underbelly basically. And I loved it because it really is just the person, and it really shows like their mannerisms and everything. It's just them talking and telling their life story, and I love their gestures and their mannerisms, so I really love that as well. And so today I woke up feeling so in the flow creatively that I thought, I must have been on an artist date with these different ways that I had contributed to what I ingested over the weekend creatively, these different bits that added to the recipe that today made me much more creative and in the flow when I could work on my book. So yeah, that is my story about the Artist's Way and how it influenced me today and over the weekend with the different stories, the different ways that I contributed to my creativity. So on this channel, I'm talking about different books and authors who influenced me, and also adding to it my story of how I found that book or that author, and like different parts of my life as well that I end up talking about. So I love telling stories, and if you love to listen to stories as well and to watch people's gestures too perhaps, then I invite you to like and subscribe. And that way you can be in touch and see and remember to watch this channel. Maybe you can press the notification bell, or you can just be in touch and remember how to get back here. So yeah, I will be producing one video every Monday at least. So I hope to see you again. Leave a comment below. Have you read The Artist's Way? Are you an artist? And what helps to contribute to your creativity? If you are any kind of, I'm sure you're creative in some way. If you're not like an artist, would you like to read this book? Or what feeds your creativity, and how you express your creativity in the world, whether it's through teaching or cooking or whatever it is that you do creatively. Thanks guys, and see you next time. Bye.